Today I want to talk about what I think is the best first Rolex, and that is the Rolex TURN-O-GRAPH. Now, there's been a number of different releases of this piece over the years. The one that I have specifically in my collection is the 116264. I think that this is a particularly desirable model. Really the 11626X, so there's also the 263 and the 261 that are some different versions. I like both of those as well. However, the one I currently have is the 116264. Now, one of the reasons why I think this is a great first Rolex is the value. When you look for this particular piece on the used market, you can find some pretty good deals on it. That's one of the things that I try to find is when I'm looking for a timepiece, I want it to be able to retain or maybe even increase in value. And I think the TURN-O-GRAPH is particularly interesting in that respect because it is a discontinued piece, and it has been in production and out of production a number of times since its initial release, but it is currently not in production. There's rumors that it might be produced again, but at least in current state, it is not in production. So I think that is something that will help it to retain or even increase in value. It isn't actually all that expensive when compared with other Datejust models or any other Rolex for that matter. So and actually currently, based on current market prices, it's actually, you can pick one of these up fairly close to price of a regular Datejust on the secondary market. So and cheaper than a brand new Datejust. So that is something to consider. So along that lines, a regular Datejust is probably going to merely retain value and then probably keep up with inflation. It is not likely to increase in value due to the production volumes of the Datejust. So that is just something to consider when comparing this with a regular Datejust. And to that point, this is part of the Datejust line. And there's a ton of history with Datejusts, but with that also you have a lot of compatibility in terms of parts, bands, straps, bracelets. This is a 36 millimeter, so with it being part of that Datejust family, it is an interesting thing that is an added bonus for the current version of the TURN-O-GRAPH. Now, the original release of the TURN-O-GRAPH was on its own, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. So then the other thing that is great about the TURN-O-GRAPH is the movement. It is 3135, and as of this release, that's the same movement that's in something like the Submariner line. So it's kind of a workhorse movement. And there's even an interesting write-up by a watchmaker that kind of goes into detail about why he prefers the 3135 over the newer 3235. The 3235 is in the current generation Datejust models, and it is a great movement. It has a longer power reserve of 70 hours. You know, whether you need that or not, you know, that can be a discussion. Actually, I have on my wrist a piece that is a 70-hour power reserve. This is a Tudor with its in-house movement. You know, it's nice to have, but I don't know that it's something that is absolutely necessary. However, this watchmaker, his opinion was that the 3135, due to a number of different factors, is his preference between the two, the 3135 and the 3235. His primary reasoning behind that is it's the workhorse movement that's got the history, but also some of the changes that were made for the 3235 make it so that you actually just need to replace a part rather than being able to repair or you know, fix certain parts of it. So that is a watchmaker's perspective. It might not be everybody's perspective, but it is something to consider as well. The next thing is the history. Now, the Datejust line has got a lot of history, but the Turn-O-Graph is probably one of the most influential pieces in terms of, you know, it predates. It was the first rotating bezel on a production watch for Rolex, and so with that, it kind of makes it the first tool watch. You know, it was released shortly before the original Submariner, and it looked a bit like it, but that is one of the interesting pieces of history of the Turn-O-Graph. And it's also, it was an official military watch. So the Turn-O-Graph was issued to the Thunderbirds for a short period of time. I think initially it was worn by one of the Thunderbirds, and I think Rolex caught wind of that, and eventually it became an official watch of the Air Force Thunderbirds. So that's just another little interesting piece of history. And I'll put some links into the description for the movement comparison, as well as a little write-up on some of that history. So, you know, with that, it is one of the most historically significant Rolex watches that is out there. So I think that is just another reason why the Datejust Turn-O-Graph, or the Turn-O-Graph, is one of the best watches you can have for a first Rolex. And then it comes down to rarity. So one thing that drives value, this kind of connects back to the first point, is, you know, if a piece is more rare. So the reality is that due to the production volumes of the Datejust line, it will not likely increase in value because it has such high production volumes. Now, the Turn-O-Graph is discontinued, so it's likely to increase in value, assuming they don't re-release the Turn-O-Graph. It will definitely increase in value. If they do re-release it, you know, and depending on what changes are made, some people may prefer the older ones, and you know, so that's always the case. But if they do re-release it, it might not drive as much value on these. Now, I think the early 2000s to 2011 release, these 11626X versions of the Turn-O-Graph are the best looking ones. There's a lot of little things that set it apart. You can get this with, I think, a blue sunburst dial or a black dial, but the red date, so this is not a roulette date, the red date, the red accent with the Turn-O-Graph on there, and then the red seconds hand those are all things that are unique to this line, and that the release from 2000 or the early 2000s to 2011. So those are all things that are, I think, make this look great, and I have it on a fairly cheap leather NATO strap, but I think it looks great, and it actually helps to call out those accents. So I think that's an awesome feature, and that is what really adds to the unique flair of the Turn-O-Graph. All right, so I wanted to get the shots on the bracelet. I do really like the look of the bracelet, but I'm not wearing it as much on the bracelet because it is a, I don't want to scratch the bracelet up too much. So I love the look of it on the bracelet, but I do want to take care of it. I actually picked up another strap that I will show some shots of as well. I do really like the look of this bracelet, and it is a good match for the Turn-O-Graph. But I will go ahead and swap out to my new strap and kind of show off that as well. All right, so my crown and buckle Horween 3-ring NATO came today, and I just wanted to kind of show this strap off as well. It feels pretty good. I'm gonna probably wear it for a few days to really kind of feel it out. You can kind of see how the leather is an interesting way of doing things. So Horween is kind of big. I have a number of different Horween leather type products, so yeah, I think it looks pretty good. And that's just another thing, the Turn-O-Graph looks good on a whole range of different straps. I think it adds to the versatility of it. So those are the reasons why I think the Rolex Turn-O-Graph 11626X line are one of the best watches you could buy for your first Rolex. It's just my opinion, but I'd like to know whether you agree or disagree, and you can leave that in the comments below. Let me know if you also have any questions, and subscribe. Thank you.